Hey everybody, it's Conventicle, and today I'm going to be giving you guys an old school RuneScape guide for the Great Olm. There's no real requirements for raids and killing the Great Olm, but what I highly recommend is first of all having 90 plus all combat stats. If you last any longer than 15 minutes in the Great Olm room, chances are you're going to run out of supplies, so killing him fast is pretty important. You are going to need at least one person on your team with 90 Herblore to make overload pluses. You're going to need at least one or two people with a water spell for Ohm's fire attack, which I will explain later in the video. And another thing that I highly recommend is a good team of 6 or less, because if you go 7 or more, you will have to deal with another Ohm hand phase. With your team, you should also have some sort of voice communication, whether it be Discord, TeamSpeak, or some other program. This is because there's a lot of attacks that Ohm does where you really need to communicate with your team. Now I'm going to discuss the gear and inventory setup before you go into raids. There's a lot of stuff that you can swap out to your own personal tastes, but this is what I personally roll with, so I'm using full Varix. This is good because Tecton is weak to Crush and Stab, which you can use with Varix, and Vanguards are also weak to Crush. Also, it's good for a Tribrid setup, and it has the Prayer bonus. I'm using an Eva's Accumulator just because I don't have 99 range. If you do have 99 range, then obviously use the Cape. A Fury, Ruby Bolt's Enchanted, Armadyl Crossbow, Dragonfire Shield. You can switch this out for Spirit Shields if you have them. Carol's Top, if you have an Armadyl Chestplate, that's obviously better. The Ring of Suffering is definitely the best ring to use here, but I can't afford it, so I'm just using a Berserker Ring imbued. I'm using Primordial Boots because I'm the dedicated meleeer on the third hand phase. If you have Pegasian Boots, then those are probably the best for raids in general. You can also use Eternal Boots if you can't afford either of those, and Dragonhide Boots also work. For my inventory swaps, as you can see, I have the rest of my full Varix set. Aram's Bottom, Trident of the Swamp, BGS, if you have a Dragon Warhammer, obviously use that, and a Toxic Blowpipe, preferably with Rune or Dragon Darts. If you're using Void, then definitely bring a Hasta for its Crush and Stab attacks. Since I'm using Varix, I personally don't think it's worth the inventory space. You can also bring a Rune Pouch, which is good for holding water spells or using Barrage on Muted Isle. The rest of my inventory is what I use before I go into the raid, so I have a Super Combat Potion, a Ranging Potion, and Antidote Plus Plus. You're going to need these for Vespula and Lizardman Shamans. You can bring a Serpentine Helm, but I think it's worth bringing some sort of anti-poison potion because you can drop this later in the raid and have a free inventory space for the Ohm fight. I have 2 Staminas, some Brews, some Restorers, Anglerfish, and then I'm bringing Adamant Tools. This is because you can drop these before the Ohm fight and have inventory space. Now I'm going to discuss the inventory setup that I use before I go into the Ohm room. So as you can see, I just took a sip of my Overload Plus. I still had this antidote that I saved for my initial inventory, so I took a sip of that. I took a sip of a Prayer Enhance, picked up a Brew to heal from my Overload, and then once that inventory space freed up, I picked up another Brew, and then the rest of my inventory is just 4 Revitalizations, which is the raid's equivalent of Super Restores. So when I go on my raids, I usually go with 4 to 6 people. This is going to cause Ohm to have 3 hand phases and then 1 final head phase. During the first 2 hand phases, what you're going to do is drop your BGS or Dragon Warhammer specs on the melee hand. As you can see, that's what I'm doing right here. This is his left hand. After we lower the defense of the left hand, we switch to our mage gear and start attacking the right hand. If you have the inventory space, it's good to take off your Pegasian Primordial Boots and Dragonfire Shield if that's what you're using. If you're using a Spirit Shield or you are using Eternal Boots, then you can obviously just keep these on. Once you kill the mage hand, all you gotta do is switch to your melee gear and finish off the left hand. Once the left hand is dead, the phase is gonna end, and there are gonna be crystals falling from the ceiling. The best way, in my opinion, to avoid these crystals is to go to the north wall and just keep running back and forth. If you're facing north, then it's really easy to see where these crystals are going to land, and you shouldn't get hit by any. During the third and final hand phase, you have to kill the 2 hands within 10 seconds of each other, or else they will heal to full health. So what we do is we bring the mage hand down to anywhere less than 10% of its health. We finish off the melee hand and then instantly switch to the mage hand to finish that off. Once you finish the final hand phase, you can finally start ranging the head. This is actually probably the hardest phase because the crystals will just continuously spawn on top of you. They're really hard to avoid, plus you have to stay focused on killing the head. The less health that the head has, the less the crystals will spawn from the ceiling. So as you progress through this phase, it will be easier to dodge the crystals. Once it gets to about 1/3 health, we bring out our blowpipes. Usually by this time we have some special attacks, so I like to use my blowpipe special to heal off the head just to be safe. And once you have the blowpipe out, it's really easy to finish off and you should get the kill. Now I'm going to discuss all the different attacks that Olm does and the best way to deal with them. First of all, he switches between mage and range attacks from his head. This is why you see me switching between range and mage prayer. When he's ranging you, his head will shoot out green ball looking things like this. And when he's maging you, he will shoot out these teardrop looking things that are lighter color. There's no way to predict when he will switch between range and magic attacks, but once he does switch, he will usually stay on that attack style for a while. The next attacks I'm going to discuss are his main attacks. These only happen during the hand phases. They occur in a predictable pattern. It goes crystals, shockwaves, and then the teleport swaps. As you can see right here, these are the crystals. What happens during the crystals is there will be spikes that appear under your feet. Right when you see these, click on a different square where there are not spikes about to come up and you should be safe. If you do not click in time, these will hit you for about a 30 to 40, somewhere in that range. After crystals, there will be shockwaves. These are the green lightning bolts that go across the floor, as you can see. If you get hit by these, you won't get hit a lot, but it will get rid of your overhead prayer, and there will be about a 5-second delay until you can turn your overhead prayer back on. After the shockwaves, there are going to be colors that appear under you and your teammates' feet. Try to get as close as you can to the teammate with the same color under their feet. If you stand on the same square, you will take no damage, and the further away you are, the more damage you will take. Once those teleport swaps have finished, the next thing you have to worry about will be the crystals. Like I said, it alternates in a predictable pattern, so it just goes crystals, shockwave, teleports, crystals, shockwaves, teleports, and repeats like that. Now I'm going to discuss Olm's secondary attacks. The first one is the fire wave, as you can see right here. You can get out of this if someone on your team or yourself uses a water spell on the fire. If you get stuck in between the fire and cannot escape, you are going to get hit really high, so I advise that you brew up as much as you can. The next secondary attack is the colored orbs that he shoots out of his mouth. These are a lot like Cerberus. When the orb comes out of its mouth, it will get rid of your overhead prayer and you will have to re-pray the correct overhead prayer. If you see a purple orb coming at you, use Protect from Magic. If you see a green one coming at you, use Protect from Range. And if you see a red one, then use Protect from Melee. This attack is especially hard when you're all meleeing the hand because it will be hard to tell which orb is going after who. For this reason, it's good to spread out as much as you can so that way you can tell. The next attack is the poison. What will happen is the poison puddle will appear under you. And if you stand in the poison puddle, then it will just keep poisoning you. So the best thing to do when you get this is to walk it off. Try to avoid your teammates and not poison them too. It takes a while for it to run out, but once it does, you should be all good. This is why I like to use the antidote or just any other anti-poison before I go in, but this obviously won't last you the entire fight. Olm also shoots out bombs from his mouth. Stand too close to these and you will get hit really hard. They're pretty easy to avoid. Just make sure if you see one, call it out for your teammates if they're near it. The final secondary attack that he can do on any phase is the target. This is when there's a red teleport under you. All you have to do with this is just keep moving. It's a lot like the poison. If you stay in the same position, you will get comboed, but if you keep moving, then you won't really get hit at all. Sometimes he will spit out a green fireball, which will cause your character to say, "Burn with me." If you are within 2 squares of the person saying "burn with me," you will also start to get burned, and what will happen is every couple ticks you will take about 5 damage. This is really annoying when you're on the melee hand as there's not much you can do, but when you're maging, just try to stay away from anybody who is saying "burn with me." During the final hand phase, the melee hand has the ability to heal itself. When it has this infinity symbol over it and you hit it, it will heal itself. So just sit there and not hit it, or just go back to maging until it ends. And the final attack that Olm does happens only during its final head phase. This is when it shoots out like spitballs from its mouth and creates pools. You have to walk on these pools, or else whatever Olm hits you, it will heal. This is actually probably my least favorite attack, because what happens is you and your teammates will go on the same pool, and this will cause all the crystals to spawn on top of you, so you get comboed pretty hard. So if you ever end up having to land on one of these pools, I advise you brew up if you can. So that just about wraps up my Olm guide for Old School RuneScape. If you are having trouble finding a team to do raids with, then I would recommend joining the clan I'm in called Let's PVM07. I put the link to our website in the description of every single one of my videos. All you have to do to join is fit the requirements and fill out an application on the website. If you found this guide helpful in any way, please consider leaving a thumbs up, and if you have any questions, leave a comment down below and I will try to answer as much as I can. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys later in my next video if you're subscribed. Peace.